You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to episode 430 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined by a tried and tired Seth Miller and Fosma Moon. How y'all doing?
If I'm snoring later in the episode, I apologize.
Well, you just flew back, right?
And boy, are my arms tired. Yeah. No,
oh, God.
Yuck. You started it. It is 7 o'clock on the East Coast, and I was up at 4 o'clock this morning in Amsterdam time. So
it's a long day.
Had a couple small naps on the plane, but yeah, long day.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see what we got here. We've got some follow-up from last week.
Yes.
Charts. Let's talk about those first.
I rescind my comments that it doesn't seem that bad.
Really?
Yes, because I was trying to book an award ticket and they wanted 75,000 points for Washington, D.C. to Manchester in economy class. Manchester, New Hampshire. A 40-minute flight on a CR9, and they wanted 75,000 points. And so I've decided, since it affects me personally more than I want it to, F those guys.
Oh, that bad.
Yeah. What it would appear they've done is gone straight penny a point if it's not saver level. And I assume that there's still sort of something out there occasionally representing saver level, but strict penny a point after that is tough.
I mean, it's kind of in line with what we've seen from everybody else, right? Or the other majors, I guess.
Are they all always that way? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think United, they have their times when they run the saver more often than the dynamic. So I guess Delta maybe, or JetBlue.
There are definitely scenarios where it happens like that. And maybe this is a one-off and this is not the norm, but I saw it, and so now I'm annoyed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd like to hear from listeners and what they think on the charts. I'm sure, or the lack of charts, I guess.
Yeah.
Is there any way lack of charts could be good?
No.
Okay. So I think we have our answer right there.
Well, I mean, it'd be funny to hear from listeners if they've hit like a sweet spot, right? Or they found availability that was cheaper than what they were expecting.
I mean, if what Seth is saying is accurate, a penny a point, right? The only way you'd find a sweet spot is if revenue management actually drops fares.
And then is it a sweet spot or not?
Yeah.
Are you actually getting outright? Sweet spot generally is outsized value for the point.
Yeah.
So his 75,000 mile award goes to 50,000. Still not a really good value for DCA to Manchester.
Yeah, if it's still a penny a point, it's just a penny a point. I guess, right, where we've seen it in the past where, quote unquote, not having a chart has helped is when, Delta or United has run weird sale pricing and dramatically dropped random city pairs. Now, not necessarily ones that are super high priced and not always, and some is not. It's usually better than penny a point, though, even when they're on sale, when those have worked out. So, and like I said last week, you can always just run a sale. You can and break the chart to do that, but I don't know, not great. I'm really annoyed because that would have made my trip this week really much better, and it doesn't exist. So I'm flying to Boston.
Who did you end up flying on?
I'm going to still fly American, and I'm going to fly him to Boston and take the bus from Boston to Manchester because there's no good flights.
Really?
Yeah.
Will AA let you stand by on a coterm?
Is Manchester considered a coterm for Boston?
Boston's the name of the airport. I would argue it that way.
I mean, if I search for United from Dulles to Boston, it shows me tickets to Providence and to Albany. So...
Albany, I don't understand.
3 hours away on the Mass Pike.
It's still 3 hours away.
Yeah, that was annoying. I'm like, oh, this flight looks great, except it's going to the wrong state. 2 states away. Not even a neighboring state. Anyway.
Speaking of bus, I put something in our notes just now.
Okay.
So my coworker lives in Fort Collins. The first price that you look at is Lisbon to Denver. Okay. Economy. All right. And then the next screenshot is Lisbon to Fort Collins. Same dates, everything. Same thing. Is that the most expensive bus you have ever seen?
Yes.
Okay, so
do you get the whole bus?
It's more than $2,000
for the Fort Collins bus from Denver.
Well, see, because fares are based on markets. Wow.
Oh. So I get why you don't want to take the bus, Seth.
Well, I guess I'm lucky because I just pay my $26 and move on.
He was dumbfounded because he was looking for an easier way just to get home. Like he was kind of looking at some other stuff, and then he was like, "Wait a second," because I looked up Lisbon to Denver to help him, and he's like, "Well, I'm on the bus." He's like, "I can't do that; it's too expensive." And I said, "What are you talking about? It's like $900." And he goes, "No, it's $3,300." So,
how much is it just to buy the bus ticket?
You can't.
You can't. I think you have to connect it with the flight.
Oh, it's a United bus. Okay.
Yeah. It's that whatever that
landline.
Yeah, landline bus.
It's like the Allentown thing.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Silver.
We not booted yet.
Not booted? Yeah, they haven't been evicted.
We're not dead yet. Yeah, they've got a reprieve on their lease issue for now. It's unclear how long that's going to last, but they still owe the back rent and at Fort Lauderdale. So
you don't know the details of why. Like, do you think that they negotiated? I'm guessing they negotiated something to.
I'm sure they negotiated something with the airport, but I haven't seen the details. Unfortunately, the article that I had the link for was from a newspaper or an online newspaper website that does not allow access from Europe for GDPR compliance reasons.
It's one way of addressing GDPR compliance.
Instead of bothering to have like that stupid "we agree" click through capture button that literally everybody else in the world does, there's a whole collection of, I think it's Tribune Group or something like that just like, oh, we see your IP address is in Europe, you can't read our stuff.
Lovely. And
so I saw it, and it's Sun Sentinel, which is out of Florida. But I know the story happened, but I was in Europe, and unlike with my Priceline rental car booking last week, did not bother to work around it for this one.
So, I mean, I guess Silver, if they pay the back money, maybe they'll be in good standing. But it kind of seems like if you're the airport authority, you kind of just give them one chance and that's it, and then they don't follow through, kick them out at this point.
I mean, no.
You run the risk of pushing them out, dropping a bunch of routes in the process.
Yeah, you push them out, they die.
Yeah,
right. They're not going to just like move to Orlando or move to Miami instead. So, killing an airline, and yes, they owe you money, but killing the airline is not a good look. And you want them. They provide some unique service to Fort Lauderdale. So,
yeah.
But also, like, you can't just let them not pay forever.
Yeah, fair point. Speaking of which, I'm going to ask you, Seth. So, how did you end up? I mean, we left it kind of in the bonus show. I think your train travails. You got stuck. How did you end up getting to where you needed to go?
I flew. I bought a walk-up ticket on EasyJet from Milan, Malpensa to Amsterdam, and then was planning to take the train. My work was in The Hague, Den Haag. Was planning to take the train out, and it turns out that the company I was going to visit had someone connecting through Amsterdam and who lives in Dubai and moved there from Singapore and went on his way to visit Iceland and didn't have a jacket, and it was below freezing in Iceland. So, the people in the Netherlands had plenty of jackets, and the employee had a connection, so they sent someone to the airport with a jacket, the guy cleared immigration on his connection, came out, collected the jacket, went back through immigration, and checked back and got back on his plane for the onward flight.
Wow.
And so the advantage for me there was that the guy doing the jacket handoff was at the airport at the same time I was arriving, so I just rode with him instead of having to take the train.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, which I made up for it by having to take the train at 5:22 this morning. But at least there was a 5:22 train, because when I looked initially, I was looking from the other station in The Hague. There's like 2 big train stations, and the other one, I probably would have been fine, but the train didn't arrive at Schiphol until just after 7, and my flight had an 8:10 departure, and with potentially checking a bag, which I ended up doing and it getting lost. It's been delayed. I've been promised they'll be delivered tonight. We'll see. And between that and the risk of security, which security and immigration at Schiphol this morning was literally 0 people. But I probably would have been fine, but I don't know. It would have been an hour later, and maybe they would have been terrible at that point. But so I walked right through. But I was up for a 5 o'clock flight this morning, or 5:22 train.
Lovely. So we'll talk about some new stuff. I think the big news, or some big news, American is dropping Seattle, London, Heathrow for the winter, but at the same time they're launching LAX to Auckland. I think this is big news because American can't seem to figure out what routes they actually want to fly.
Sure.
I mean, we understand why they didn't launch Seattle Bangalore, right? And maybe even Shanghai.
So China still has issues in terms of frequencies that are allowed.
Yep.
Right? The governments are still pissing match with each other over what that's going to be like. So that explains some of the China stuff. And the market hasn't rebounded as quickly as people want, so fine. China's sort of out these days. We were talking about, I think that's why United has planes to fly its Pacific expansion in some ways. Bangalore's out because you can't overfly Russia. And maybe the market is back, maybe not. So the Seattle Heathrow route, BA is already flying it. American was going to augment that. And it turns out that in last week's earnings call, Alaska Airlines basically said, oh, by the way, our business travel has not come back yet. Leisure travel is back. It's far exceeding. We're doing fine, but business travel is not back. And so we're trying to sort out how that's going to be in the future. And a flight like Heathrow is got to be dependent, especially in the winter, has to be dependent on business travelers. And for American Airlines at Seattle, it's got to be dependent on feed from Alaska Airlines. So if Alaska Airlines say we don't have any business, or we only have half as many business travelers as we had in 2019, which, to be fair, is, I'm pretty sure when American announced this route, it kind of makes some sense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird route for me anyway. Like, you already have BA flying it.
Yeah.
Twice a day, I think, in the summer.
I think in the summer it's twice, and plus the American flight. So summer's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, and then you have Delta, right? And then but BA, I would expect to pick up the connecting traffic from, Alaska.
Well, right, and that's the thing is now that Alaska's in Oneworld, they can pick up that traffic as well, right? Didn't American announce this in 2019 before Alaska was in Oneworld and before, like, it was a very different market at that time.
I mean, they announced it when they knew Alaska was going to join Oneworld, but
was it already known?
And I believe so, because that was the premise of the entire Seattle expansion.
So I thought it was just their West Coast partnership, like the Northeast Alliance, but on the West Coast.
Oh, maybe it was just that, but it hinged on Alaska either.
It did hinge on Alaska, but I don't think it was Oneworld, which changes the transatlantic.
The economics, yeah.
I mean, but Alaska's always had a relationship with BA as well.
Yeah.
And, as far as the Delta flight, there are times when Delta's dropped that flight to let Virgin fly it.
That's true. Yeah.
So I mean, the real question is, does it come back in the summer season next year.
What are your predictions then, Foz?
Oh no! I mean, I think unless it's Dallas, there's nothing guaranteed out of AA. Dallas or Charlotte, I'd say. I mean, just a few weeks ago they dropped. Is it Philly Madrid that they dropped because they were short of wide body?
So just randomly dropping flights?
Yeah, for 6 weeks or something, they dropped Philly Madrid, which they clearly would be. I assume they'd be feeding traffic into Iberia in Madrid, but I guess not enough.
Interesting. Yeah, that's. I mean, I know they have the Dallas flight, so they can still connect people into Madrid if they need to, and whatever. But
and Iberia has a Dallas flight too, right?
Maybe.
I know they have a Miami flight. I don't know if they have a.
I think they do, but I mean, it's strange to me. I guess an LA-Auckland. I mean,
right. Well, that's the thing. Is like you're replacing some of this capacity with LA-Auckland, which United just announced. Air New Zealand is also flying. There's a lot of capacity in that market all of a sudden.
Yeah. And this is in with Dallas Auckland.
Yeah. Yes, Iberia does have a nonstop as well to Dallas. But anyway, and it looks like there's a Madrid Charlotte also on American and Miami on American. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of capacity going into New Zealand all of a sudden. And I know they've come back pretty strong, and that's one of those markets that they've been pushing very hard for the U.S. tourism growth there. I mean, playing up, it's not that many time zones and all this other stuff. But it's a lot of lift, which means a lot of potential hotel rooms and everything else, like all those other challenges, although I guess the China inbound is not back there yet either. So they need, getting U.S. passengers in instead of the Chinese is filling a gap rather than overlapping.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of feet. It strikes me. I mean, it's winter down there, right? It's not the best time either to be in New Zealand.
It is.
Is it? Is it good?
That's high season. They get skiing down in the South Island. There's a lot. That's Christmas down there is huge demand.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So
I guess it's good for.
Yeah. That's what I remember from when this was how long ago was the United Mistake Fair?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
A long time ago.
15 years ago, probably. That's what I remember from that when we all went over Christmas. But anyway.
Yeah. And then Airbus has had their deliveries delayed again, and it's now going into 2024.
In 2024, they're still expecting 3-ish month delays based on from the originally planned schedules. If that makes sense. So basically, they've been running 3 months behind for the last probably year or so. And they're saying now that's going to run until at least 2024. So, yay.
Wow. So they're not able to make up the delay. Like, they're not able to make it up. Like, they're just not catching up at all.
That's what it seems to be, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm right. I mean, in some ways, like, how would you catch it up? Because you've got a assembly line that moves at a certain pace, and yes, it can change pace, but doing that is a complex process. You can't just randomly build an extra one.
Yeah.
It's a very fine-tuned, in theory, cycle assembly line process, and changing the pacing on it, scaling it up or whatever to increase build rates is not an easy task.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, did we talk about them opening a second line in China?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, and so as part of some other announcements a couple weeks ago now, they announced a second line going in Tianjin. So
they're going to have a second, basically assembly going on. So they'll have to fly planes in or fly parts in.
Yeah, I don't know if they fly them or ferry them, but yeah, they ferry them to Alabama.
Really?
Yeah, they've got a custom load ship where they bring fuselages and tail pieces and wings and all that stuff across, and they roll them off, drive them to the FAL. There's like a intake room where they get laid out to be ready to go, and then when the time comes and like when all the parts are ready, they roll them into position on the line and put them together.
Wow, didn't realize that.
Yeah, so it's a neat. I mean, it's a neat setup. You also got to wonder, like, how in the world is this a reasonable approach to construction of an airplane? But they get around some potential tariff stuff and. Right? You get to say that we have local employees in Alabama. It's built in America.
Assembled in America.
Assembled in America, yeah. Well, I mean, you know that they have to, the safety card on Airbus airplanes has a little indicator of where it was finally assembled.
Oh, I did not know that.
If you ever get on an Airbus plane, somewhere on the card in the United States, on a U.S. registered airline, there'll be, usually it's a flag icon.
Yep.
Showing where it was assembled, or it's small text on the back. And as of, I want to say it's probably 18 months now, Frontier once again, or Spirit, one of the two, asked the FAA to stop doing that because it's stupid. And the FAA said, Congress has mandated it. We can't control that. Sorry. And it's basically, this is a protectionist. We want people to know these weren't assembled in the United States. And even though now some of them are assembled in the United States, they put the little U.S. flag on there instead of a German or French flag.
So is Frontier just, do they not want to spend the ink?
They don't want to have to maintain multiple stocks of cards at outstations. So when one's missing and they go to replace it, they have to have the right one.
Ah, I gotcha.
And also, it's stupid. So, like, why do we, like, why would you do this? It's stupid.
Yeah.
So.
Dulles could have a permanent set of gates at Pier 2 by December 2026. Are they?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
You don't think it's going to happen? They've got magic? No.
Come on, really? Who's going to pay for it, right? That's been the age-old problem, is that after Washington.
Yeah, this comes back to, I think they got a Fed grant to help. And United said if they didn't have to pay for all of it, they'd pay for part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this came from the MWAA meeting notes. So it's on the agenda. They really are planning to do it.
I'm glad to see that it looks like they're going to keep the same old hallway design.
Yeah.
Kind of a little rough. Where would this be, though? So this would be on the...
Where the Polaris Lounge is.
So the east side.
Where the Polaris Lounge is?
Didn't they put or where the train station?
It's where the train station is.
Yeah. I thought at one point they were going to put the Polaris Lounge out there, but they did not.
No. Yeah.
So this is further east than the Polaris Lounge.
South.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
Like it's parallel to the two concourses today are two long, straight lines. This is parallel to the current CD concourse further away from AB, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And on the east side, I'm guessing, because it's east. It says east.
So yeah, they're going to build like one end of it and then eventually build the rest of it.
Huh. It's I don't know. 2026 seems very aggressive. I guess the end of 2026.
Oh, and the picture only has 7 planes on it.
Those are 7 wide bodies, and so each wide body is sort of using a double narrow body gate.
Okay, so 14 planes. That doesn't really fill the void that C&D would create.
No, it's not the full replacement yet. At all.
Okay.
But
so it's a teaser.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's, 50, 60 gates in that concourse right now?
Maybe 40. Looks like. Let me see. Trying to count. There's quite a few.
Yeah, it's very long.
Yeah. Might be 50. Yeah. Maybe 50. Yep. That's a lot. I don't know. Do you think it happened, Seth?
Yes.
Just because they're taking it seriously, or what's your?
Yeah, I'm. Everybody knows this needs to happen. It was a matter of who's going to pay for it, and I think they finally got the money part sorted with some federal funding. So,
yeah, this one makes sense though with the train too, because that's where the train ends down there.
Yeah.
So, be kind of nice to be able to actually have a train that goes into a terminal.
Well, only one end of the train though.
That's true. Breeze at Islip. What is this about?
They've added Islip to Raleigh and Islip to Portland, Maine for this summer, which Portland, Maine is I don't know. That seems like an interesting choice to me.
Just for the summer?
They're starting the summer. I don't remember if those routes are seasonal or full year. There was some stuff that was seasonal and some that was full year that came out. So, but they also are killing off the White Plains, LA Transcon. Which
they couldn't make it, huh?
Couldn't make it work. And I wonder if it's because there's not a true premium product. Right, that the people who are paying the big bucks are going to just drive down to JFK or Newark.
No, I don't think that's it. There probably is something else, right? Because some of those
terribly unreliable.
Yeah, that would be the bigger thing, right? Because a lot of the people from Connecticut will fly out of LaGuardia and take a connection rather than going all the way to JFK or the Bradley.
Fair. Yeah, that was a route that was like sort of a look. We got the 220. Look at these special things it can do, and some of them it's not really just hasn't quite come together the way they wanted. So it's unfortunate
because they have an operational issue with the 220. I mean, they're operationally unreliable right now.
I think it's more of a staffing situation. Right. They also announced they were going to offer stock options or shares, whatever, credits as part of the signing bonus for new pilots. If you showed up to fly, I think it was, I don't remember if it was only the 220 or it was any new pilots, but that came up in the last couple of weeks.
And then Avelo.
They said that they're granting 200 restricted stock awards, but there's no indication of how many shares are outstanding or what that's actually really worth. And they're offering A220 captain starts at $215 an hour, which is still well below, and $105 an hour for first officers, which is still apparently relatively cheap compared to JetBlue, for example, or Delta.
Yeah. So they're not super competitive yet when it comes to that stuff.
No.
And then Avelo at Wilmington, Delaware. What's happening there? Have they already decided they're not going to fly anything in there anymore?
No, they're growing massively.
Oh, so you're headed back down there.
I am not going back for any more inaugurals. They currently have 5 routes. They're adding 9 more destinations. So in Florida, they're adding Daytona and Melbourne, which are right next to each other, but sure, on different days of the week. So it sort of makes sense. And they're not right next to each other, like an hour apart, 45 minutes maybe. They're adding Charleston, Nashville, Greensboro. I'm doing this from memory, so I'm sure I'm going to miss some. Raleigh, Savannah, and there's one more, but also Wilmington, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Oh.
So in the past month, we've seen Charleston to Charleston and Wilmington to Wilmington, both announced to fly this summer. One by Avelo and one by Breeze.
Yeah. Wilmington, North Carolina, is that a decent sized market? It's not like Asheville, right? It's not
It's Outer
not
Banks
huge.
Gateway,
Okay, yeah.
is my understanding. It's sort of it's out towards the water there.
Yeah.
It's out towards the southern edge of North Carolina, sort of towards the South Carolina coast or border.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a decent size. I mean, it's 6
Yeah.
gates, 7 gates. So interesting. I want to talk about the new Munich terminal. I mean, I know we talked about it probably a long time ago when it was built, but I actually flew through it this past Friday. Surprisingly, not great. I mean, it's clean, it's new, but it's if you don't know when you go out there that there's nothing out there, you're kind of stuck. So I didn't know. I just hopped on the train because I was going to my connection, and got out to this remote terminal. And there, even in the Schengen side, so the side that's still behind immigration, there's not a ton of like eats or things. It's just kind of maybe a few shops here and there. It's nothing like the main terminal. So just be aware.
But is that a function of they just haven't built them yet, or there just isn't space for it?
I think it's like they haven't built them. Maybe COVID kind of prevented it from happening. I mean, there's some stuff, right? There's like a duty free store. There's like a couple of sandwich shops, but nothing. There's not a lot. It's just. So I think it's just a function of COVID.
But it's just like Heathrow, though, right? In the remote piers, there's almost nothing.
True, and it's especially true when you get outside of Schengen. So as soon as you go through immigration, there is like a little cart with sandwiches, and that is it.
Ouch.
And some vending machines. So I went through immigration because I was just trying to get to my connection, and then I realized there was nothing. I didn't go back into Germany. So, but it's I was surprised. They have space, like they have space for stuff. It's just I think the logistics of putting more people behind immigration and things, and looking at the map, I think maybe before COVID there was more stuff, Foz. So I can't tell.
I remember connecting out there once, probably 5 years ago now, and it was not that bad. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking about it. Like I've done that remote terminal as well, and it wasn't that bad. And I was in the non-Schengen side because I was doing Munich to Toronto.
Yeah, it's definitely in the non-Schengen side. There's nothing.
Yeah, I just wonder if they needed the gates back because operations are picking up, but they haven't staffed up concessions yet.
Yeah, that would make sense. Just a word of warning.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about my flights on Lufthansa in the bonus topics. But Air Malta might be collapsing.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. They have been money losing. This is the state carrier for Malta, not to be confused with Malta Air, which is a Ryanair subsidiary.
Okay.
The government had been trying to push some money into that, and the EU doesn't like that sort of thing. So depending on, and right now it's a lot of unnamed sources and things like that, but they're talking about having to shut down the airline and then potentially launching a replacement carrier a la Swiss or Sabina to Brussels, which I guess would be allowed to get the money. I don't know.
And then Lufthansa will promptly offer to buy them?
Nah. I mean, if it had a decent hub that was worth taking over, sure, but
yeah.
So no.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to chat about this week? Nothing
for me.
No. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about BA Premium Economy from Seth, and we're going to talk about Al Nippon Airways and their mistake fare. and how crazy people are when it comes to mistake fares. So stick around if you're a Patreon subscriber, and we'll talk about that in the bonus. If not, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Happy travels.
Take care.
Catch you later.